The emergency alarm screamed through the massive Galactic Council building, making every alien in the room freeze with fear. Council leader Nexstar, a tall creature with 8 purple tentacles, watched his hands shake as the distress call played on the giant screen above them. The sounds coming through were horrible. Millions of innocent Solari people crying out as they died, their beautiful green planet being eaten alive by something called the Void Swarm. "How many worlds have we lost?" Nexstar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ambassador Kelthos, who looked like a giant bug with a shiny black shell, could barely speak. His shell was cracking from pure stress. 17 star systems in just 4 days, sir. The mechanical plague. ... It takes everything that's alive and turns it into more of itself. Our people become part of the enemy. The room filled with panicked chatter from dozens of different alien species. Some had feathers, others had scales, and a few glowed with their own light. But they all had one thing in common. They were terrified. Their most powerful warships had been destroyed or converted into enemy vessels within hours of contact. "What about the Fourth Fleet?" asked General Vexana, a reptilian creature with bright red skin. "Gone," Kelthos replied, his voice breaking. "They sent one last message before the swarm took them. The captain said their weapons couldn't even scratch the enemy ships. Then we heard screaming, and the signal went dead." Nexstar closed his 8 eyes and tried to think. In his 300 years as council leader, he had never faced anything like this. The Void Swarm wasn't just another hostile alien race. It was like a disease that spread from planet to planet, growing stronger with each world it consumed. Traditional warfare was useless against them. "Sir," whispered his aide, a small blue creature with big eyes. "There is one option we haven't discussed." The room went completely silent. Everyone knew what the aide meant, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. "The humans," Nexstar said finally, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. 300 years ago, the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. They had asked the humans to help them fight a war against another aggressive species. The humans had agreed, but their methods were so brutal and effective that they scared everyone. They didn't just win battles, they completely destroyed their enemies so thoroughly that other species would never dare attack again. After the war, the Council told the humans they were too dangerous to be part of galactic society. They locked Earth's solar system behind an energy barrier and told humanity they could never leave. The humans had saved the galaxy, and the galaxy had thanked them by making them prisoners in their own home. "They'll never help us," said Ambassador Kelthos. "We treated them like criminals after they saved us." "They're monsters," added General Vexana. "I've read the reports from the Krex War. Human soldiers would charge into battle even when they were badly wounded. They fought in conditions that would kill any of us instantly. They seemed to enjoy the violence." But Nexstar remembered something else from those old reports. Yes, humans were incredibly violent and dangerous, but they only fought that way when they were protecting something they cared about. Every brutal tactic, every terrifying weapon, it was all used to defend innocent people from those who would hurt them. "Send the message," Nexstar ordered, his tentacles steady now. "Tell them we're sorry. Tell them the galaxy is dying, and we need the monsters we created to save us from something even worse." The communication officer, her 6 arms dancing over the controls, opened a channel to the Forbidden Soul system. The message was simple, but carried the weight of billions of lives. "We revoke your exile. The galaxy is dying. Please help." As the signal traveled through space toward Earth, Nexstar wondered if humanity would answer their call, or if they would let the galaxy burn for what had been done to them. Admiral Jake Morrison felt the message arrive before he even heard it. The bridge of the UES Retribution had been quiet for months, floating in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit like a sleeping giant. 300 years of isolation had changed everything about humanity's approach to war, where other species built ships for exploration and trade. Humans had learned to build vessels that could survive the end of the world itself. "Sir," "We're receiving a transmission," called out Communications Officer Diana Ross, her fingers dancing over controls that glowed with an eerie blue light. "It's coming from the Galactic Council." Morrison's weathered face showed no emotion as the message played. He had been expecting this day for decades. The galaxy that had once called humans too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable, was now begging for their help. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Patch me through to all fleet commanders," Morrison ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Holographic images flickered to life around the bridge. Captain Troy Bennett of the Vengeance appeared first, his scarred face telling the story of someone who had survived the brutal training exercises on Jupiter's volcanic moons. Commander Rachel Kim of the Defiance materialized next, her calm expression hiding the fact that she had once fought off alien wildlife barehanded during survival training on Mars. One by one, more commanders joined the call. Captain Brandon Cole from the Relentless, whose ship was designed to ram through asteroid fields at full speed. Commander Ashley Turner from the Unstoppable, who had personally tested her vessel's weapons against the storms of Venus. These weren't just military officers. They were the products of humanity's most extreme training programs, forged in environments that would instantly kill any other known species in the galaxy. "I know you've all heard the message," Morrison began, pacing slowly in front of the holographic display. "The same aliens who locked us away like dangerous animals are now asking us to save them from something they can't handle." Captain Bennett's image flickered slightly as he leaned forward. "Admiral, my crew is ready to deploy. We've been sitting in the dark for too long. The Vengeance wants to see some action." "This isn't about revenge," Morrison said firmly, though he understood the anger in Bennett's voice. 3 centuries ago, they were scared of us because we fought differently than everyone else. We didn't just win battles, we ended wars, permanently. They called us monsters because we were willing to do what others couldn't. Commander Kim's voice was steady as she spoke. "The reports from the frontier worlds are disturbing, sir. This void swarm doesn't negotiate, doesn't retreat, doesn't show mercy. It just consumes everything in its path. The Council's conventional forces never stood a chance." Morrison nodded, pulling up tactical displays that showed the swarm's advance across the galaxy. Entire civilizations had been wiped out in days. Planets that had existed for millions of years were now barren rocks, stripped of all organic matter. "Here's what they don't understand," Morrison continued, his voice growing stronger. "They think we're dangerous because we're violent. But that's not why we're dangerous. We're dangerous because we refuse to give up. Every human in this fleet has ancestors who survived ice ages, plagues, wars, natural disasters, and extinction events. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years." The holographic commanders listened intently. As Morrison walked over to a large window showing the stars beyond Earth's solar system. "Evolution didn't make us violent for the fun of it. It made us this way so we could protect what matters. Every brutal training exercise, every impossible mission we've run, it was all preparing us for this moment." Captain Cole's gruff voice cut through the silence. "So what are your orders, Admiral?" Morrison turned back to face his commanders, and for the first time in the conversation, he smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the kind of expression a wolf might wear when it finally found the threat to its pack. "Wake up every ship in the fleet. Recall all personnel from leave. Today, the galaxy remembers why humans evolved on a death world." The human war fleet tore through hyperspace like a pack of hungry wolves, their dark ships cutting through the void with deadly purpose. When they finally dropped back into normal space, near the Zelari system, even the battle-hardened human crews fell silent at what they saw. Where once beautiful green worlds had orbited a golden sun, now only gray, lifeless rocks remained. The void swarm had stripped away every tree, every blade of grass, every living creature down to the microscopic level. Worse still, the organic matter hadn't been destroyed, it had been transformed into something horrible. Massive ships floated through space like diseased organs, pulsing with veins that carried the stolen life force of entire civilizations. Captain Troy Hayes stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Hammer, watching the nightmare unfold on her tactical screens. Her crew had seen combat footage from other alien species who had tried to fight the swarm, but experiencing it firsthand was different. The enemy ships didn't follow any logical design. They were organic tumors floating in space, covered in weapons that had once been the bones and flesh of innocent people. "Ma'am, we're detecting thousands of swarm vessels in the system," reported Lieutenant Danny Foster, his young face pale but determined. "They're all converging on the last inhabited planet." Hayes could see it on the main screen, a small blue world where the final survivors of the Zelari race were making their last stand. The planet's surface was already being consumed by creeping black tendrils that spread like cancer across continents. "Sergeant Bradley, prep your Marines for boarding action," Hayes ordered into her comm unit. "We're going in hard and fast." "Sergeant," Jimmy Bradley's voice crackled back from the Marine deck, steady as always. "Copy that, Captain. The boys are suited up and ready to dance. These bug ships won't know what hit them." What made this moment different from every other battle in galactic history was the human reaction to the impossible odds. Where other species saw certain death and overwhelming enemy numbers, the humans saw just another challenging day at work. Their training had prepared them for exactly this kind of nightmare scenario. "Remember, Europa Station, Marines," Hayes broadcast to the entire assault force as they prepared to launch. "These swarm creatures think they're scary because they can survive in vacuum and convert organic matter. Well, so can the fungus we fought in Jupiter's ice caves, and we burned that out just fine." The first wave of human drop pods launched from their ships like bullets fired from heaven. Each pod contained a squad of Marines who had trained their entire lives in conditions that would instantly kill most alien species. Zero-gravity combat, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures for humans. These were just normal Tuesday training exercises. Bradley's pod was the first to punch through the hull of a massive swarm bioship. The impact would have turned any other species into liquid, but human bones had evolved on a world with heavy gravity and constant danger. As his squad poured out of their pod into the writhing corridors of the enemy vessel, they moved with the fluid precision of apex predators. "Jesus, this thing smells worse than the sulfur pits on Io," muttered Private Alex Johnson, his rifle already spitting fire into the biomechanical horrors that rushed toward them. The swarm creatures were fast and deadly, but they had never faced opponents who treated a hostile alien environment as home field advantage. Meanwhile, aboard the medical ship Healer, Dr. Rachel Carter was preparing humanity's secret weapon, biological warfare that only a species from Earth could have conceived. While other races tried to fight the swarm with energy weapons and explosives, humans understood that sometimes the best way to fight a disease was with another disease. "Release the pathogen packages," Carter ordered her team. "Let's see how these biomechanical freaks handle Earth's common cold mixed with some aggressive bacteria we picked up from deep ocean thermal vents." The human strategy was beautifully simple and terrifyingly effective. Where other species saw the swarm as an unstoppable force of nature, humans saw it as just another invasive species that needed to be controlled. They had been fighting invasive organisms on Earth for millions of years: viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. This was just a bigger version of the same old problem. As the battle raged across the system, the surviving Zelari watched in amazement as these newcomers treated the galaxy's greatest nightmare like exterminators, dealing with a pest problem. The battle in the Zelari system reached its turning point when Commander Blake Stone made a decision that would be remembered for generations. His destroyer Fury had taken heavy damage from 3 swarm bioships. her hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere into space. Most commanders would have ordered a retreat. But Stone saw something else, a massive swarm mothership moving toward a convoy of refugee ships carrying the last 50,000 Zellerai survivors. "All hands, this is the captain," Stone announced. Over the ship's intercom, his voice calm, despite the chaos around them. "We've got civilians who need protection, and we're the only thing standing between them and that monster. Engineering, give me everything the reactor's got." Lieutenant Kelly Wright, his navigation officer, looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Sir, if we ram at full power, the explosion will take out half the system. We won't survive it." Stone smiled, the same expression his grandfather might have worn before charging across a battlefield on Earth. "Right, my family's been dying for other people's freedom for 8 generations. I'm not about to break tradition now. Set course for that, mothership's center mass." The Fury screamed across space like a missile, her engines burning so bright they looked like a new star. Stone's final transmission echoed across every human channel in the fleet. "See you in Valhalla, boys. Keep the beer cold for me." The explosion that followed vaporized the swarm mothership instantly and created a shockwave that disabled dozens of smaller enemy vessels. The refugee convoy escaped to safety, carrying stories of the human who had died to save people he had never met. But Stone's sacrifice was just one part of a larger pattern that was emerging across the battlefield. Where other species fought desperately to survive, humans fought with a different kind of intensity. They fought to win completely, no matter the cost. On the infected planet below, Lieutenant Colonel Danny Miller was leading the first ground assault against swarm infection sites. His troops moved through landscapes that looked like something from a nightmare. Black tendrils covered everything, pulsing with stolen life energy, while biomechanical creatures skittered between the twisted remains of once beautiful cities. "Flame units, advance," Miller ordered, his voice muffled by the heavy combat suit that protected him from the toxic atmosphere. "Remember, these things spread through spores and direct contact. Burn everything that moves, and then burn everything that doesn't move just to be sure." The flamethrowers his troops carried weren't standard military equipment. They had been designed specifically for clearing out the aggressive fungi that grew in Earth's volcanic caves. The weapons sprayed a chemical mixture hot enough to melt steel, creating walls of fire that consumed the swarm infections like dry grass. Private Tony Martinez grinned behind his helmet as he watched the alien biomatter writhe and die in the flames. "This is easier than clearing the mushroom forests back home," he called out to his squad. "At least these things don't shoot acid back at us." Meanwhile, Staff Sergeant Nicole Johnson was deploying humanity's most creative weapon, biological warfare that could only have been conceived by a species that had spent millions of years fighting microscopic enemies. Her gift packages were small metal containers that looked harmless enough, but contained some of Earth's most aggressive microorganisms. "Drop Zone Charlie is prepped and ready," Johnson reported to her commanding officer. "We've got modified Streptococcus, enhanced with genes from extremophile bacteria. These little guys love to eat organic compounds, especially the kind the swarm uses to hold itself together." Within hours of deployment, the effect was visible even from orbit. The swarm's biomechanical structures began breaking down as Earth. Bacteria treated their organic components like an all-you-can-eat buffet. What had taken the aliens months to build was falling apart in days. The surviving members of the Galactic Council watched the battle unfold with a mixture of amazement and growing fear. These humans weren't just winning. They were dismantling a galactic threat with the same methodical efficiency they might use to clean their homes. "They're treating this like pest control," whispered Ambassador Kalthos from his observation ship. "They're not even angry about it. This is just another day's work for them." What the aliens didn't understand was that this was exactly what humans had been designed for by millions of years of evolution. Earth had thrown everything at humanity: ice ages, plagues, predators, natural disasters, and humans had not just survived, but learned to thrive. The Void Swarm was just the latest challenge, and humanity was handling it the same way they handled everything else: together, completely, and without mercy for anything that threatened their pack. The final battle began when space itself seemed to tear open like a wound. From the darkness between stars emerged something that made even hardened human veterans pause in shock. The Swarm Queen was massive beyond comprehension, a living nightmare. The size of a moon, covered in millions of writhing tentacles that had once been the nervous systems of entire species. She had consumed 1,000 civilizations over millennia, growing stronger and more intelligent with each world she devoured. Admiral Jake Morrison stood alone on the bridge of the Retribution as his flagship moved to intercept the Queen. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who had trained their entire lives for this moment. The Queen's psychic presence pressed against their minds like a crushing weight. But humans had one advantage no other species possessed: they were used to fighting battles inside their own heads. "Sir, she's trying to get inside our thoughts," reported Communications Officer Diana Ross, her hand steady on the controls despite the sweat beading on her forehead. "I can feel her looking for weaknesses, trying to turn us against each other." Morrison smiled grimly. "Ross, my species spent 1,000,000 years dealing with pack hunters, territorial disputes, and survival instincts that could turn deadly in seconds. If she thinks she can break human minds with fear and aggression, she's about to learn why Earth was such a tough neighborhood." Across the system, Captain Troy Hayes was coordinating the combined human and alien fleets for the final assault. The surviving ships from dozens of species hung in space around the human war vessels, their crews watching in amazement as these newcomers prepared to face impossible odds with what looked like casual confidence. "All ships, this is Hayes. She'll broadcast on all frequencies. Today we show the galaxy how Earth's children protect the pack. Every species, every world, every life in this galaxy is part of our pack now. And nobody, not even a cosmic horror that's eaten 1,000 worlds, gets to threaten our pack." The Queen's response was immediate and terrifying. Waves of biomechanical fighters poured from her massive form like antibodies responding to an infection. Each fighter was the twisted remains of what had once been a living being, converted into a weapon by the Queen's will. The space around the battle zone filled with millions of these creatures, so many that they blocked out the light of the nearby stars. But Admiral Morrison wasn't watching the enemy fighters. He was studying the Queen herself, looking for the one thing that every human learned to recognize during their brutal childhood on Earth, the weak point that every predator tried to hide. "There," he whispered, pointing at a section of the Queen's massive body that pulsed with a different rhythm than the rest. "That's not armor, that's a nerve cluster. She's using her own consciousness to control every single creature in her swarm simultaneously." Morrison turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Kelly Wright. "Wright, I need you to patch me directly into the Queen's communication network. Not to talk to her, to inject something into her system." "Sir, that's incredibly dangerous," Wright replied, her fingers already dancing over the controls. "If she gets into your head through that connection, then she's going to learn what it's like inside the mind of something that evolved on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy." Morrison said calmly. What happened next became the stuff of legend among both human and alien military academies. Morrison didn't try to fight the Queen's hive mind with brute force. Instead, he did something that only a human could conceive. He introduced chaos into her perfect order. Every human carried within their DNA the memory of millions of years, of random mutations, environmental changes, and evolutionary chaos. Morrison opened his mind to the Queen's network and let her experience what it felt like to be a species that had survived by constantly adapting to unpredictable circumstances. The Queen's scream echoed across the galaxy as her perfectly ordered, hive mind suddenly experienced the beautiful, terrifying chaos of human evolution. Her control over millions of biomechanical creatures shattered like glass as each one was suddenly flooded with the need to think independently, to question orders, to choose their own path. Within minutes, the massive swarm began tearing itself apart as individual creatures turned on each other, no longer bound by the Queen's will. The Queen herself thrashed in agony as her consciousness was overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of human thought patterns as her death scream faded into silence. Every remaining swarm ship in the galaxy went dark simultaneously. In the aftermath, as rescue ships moved among the debris to save survivors, the Galactic Council sent a formal message to Admiral Morrison. They offered humanity full membership in galactic civilization, with all the rights and privileges they had been denied for 3 centuries. Morrison's response became required reading in diplomatic schools across the galaxy. We never wanted to leave. We just wanted you to understand that some of us are born to stand guard, while others sleep safely. Welcome to the pack.